Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabanson, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And this is something that I have on my chest that I definitely want to discuss today. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, as you guys know, you wouldn't know this if you follow big media because they're not touching it. They're staying away from it with a 100-yard stick. They don't even want to touch this story. Although I give credit to The Odd Couple. I heard Chris Broussard talk about it, and of course a plethora of independent guys have been talking about it. Based on what I've been hearing, Ticket TV has been all over this story, so a lot of people are talking about this story here. But in the midst of us discussing this yesterday, Ticket TV, I think Two Raw for Sports as well, but in the midst of us discussing this yesterday, I began to then think about the way the coverage of JJ Redick is being handled by ESPN versus the coverage of Ime Udoka, and all of the things that came with that Ime Udoka story. If you look at the JJ Redick situation, ESPN is not even touching this story. And I have hypothesized that the reason they're not doing it is because JJ Redick was just employed at ESPN as early as the NBA Finals. So if they start talking about JJ Redick, it'll reflect poorly on them because this is someone that they've been propping up on their network. Stephen A. Smith, ESPN, First Aid, they've all been propped. Now, I want to just say this quickly because it's something I thought about, and I think I saw it on 78 Sports yesterday. You know, a lot of you jigaboos in the comment section, y'all had all of this excitement. Y'all was up there rubbing your titties and doing all kind of crazy stuff. Y'all already came to conclusions. Y'all were coming up with nicknames and everything about P. Diddy. And he deserved it, right? He absolutely deserved it. Y'all had no problem turning into private investigators, coming to conclusions and all kind of stuff. But when we talk about that JJ Redick stuff, y'all ain't got nothing to say about it. You guys are relishing and seeing Diddy go down. Y'all are taking a great deal of pride in it. I see you people. Sometimes I see posts that his kids made. I think one of his kids made a post on Father's Day, and you had people running up to the kids' post, I'm like, yo, what kind of human beings do we have in society today? Okay, so if his father did that, so therefore you need to go. So what? So because he did those things, it changes the fact that that's not his father. Those kids, that's not their father. So y'all ain't have no issue doing with that. But we talking about JJ Redick, and you guys want to talk about Pump Your. I'm just watching you guys from the corner. I'm just watching you. Anyway, back to this story. If you look at the way that the Ime Udoka scandal was covered versus the JJ Redick story, it's startling. It's absolutely startling. The Ime Udoka scandal was the biggest thing on ESPN. As a matter of fact, we want to play a little bit of what Malika Andrews had to say about Ime Udoka when the news first dropped on ESPN, where she went on Stephen A. Smith's show and basically tried to dictate how his show was going to go. Take a listen to Malika Andrews basically lay down the hammer on Stephen A. Smith on his own show. Take a listen to her here.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just want to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. That was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But the Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate within for everybody involved. And I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization. And I think that that is something that was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
So you heard what Malika Andrews had to say, but it didn't stop there. ESPN at the time made it their business that they were going to prosecute Ime Udoka publicly. And on one particular occasion, something interesting happened. It was on NBA Countdown. And the crew at the time was Stephen A. Smith, Mike Breen, Michael Wilbon, and Jalen Rose. And Jalen Rose had the audacity, he had the chutzpah to go up there and say, but we've made Ime Udoka's name public. And we know that it was a consensual affair. So why isn't the other person being made public? Do you know what ensued after that? At the end of the next commercial, Jalen Rose was forced to make a public apology on live television and then said after reviewing the case, so Jalen Rose reviewed the case during a commercial break, and then he wrote up his apology. No, ESPN forced him to do one. For those of you who don't remember Jalen Rose's apology, we want to play it for you now. Take a listen to Jalen Rose's forced apology by ESPN. Take a listen to that there.
To piggyback on Stephen A's point about what Ime did, we know his name. Maybe I'm missing something as it relates to the law, but why we don't know her name? It's not like she's a minor. I feel like we should know her name publicly as well. But with that being said, I respectfully disagree with the legend Michael Wilbon. This is why. I feel like he deserves the opportunity to work again. I'm Jalen Rose, and I would like to apologize for a comment I made earlier on NBA Countdown. I question why a woman's name who had an alleged affair with Celtics head coach Ime Udoka was not made public. After an internal investigation, and it was discovered that she was a subordinate to the head coach, I now understand fully why her name should not be released to the public.
So you heard Jalen Rose. Now I want to get to Stephen A. Smith for a moment here, because Stephen A. Smith produced the show where he was slamming P. Diddy. And I get it. It brings in a lot of engagement and all of that. Stephen A. Smith that talks about people using his name for views doing the exact same thing because he thinks he's above it all. Like, oh, people use me for views, but I don't use other people. Okay, fine. You're not part of the ecosystem. You're the one driving it. Everybody uses you and you don't use anybody else, right? You're talking about P. Diddy for no other reason because you just want to express your sentiments, not because it's also going to get you some engagement. But fine, we'll all play that game together. Stephen A. Smith went on a rant 2 days ago about P. Diddy scrubbing his Instagram account. He removed all of his posts, every single post. Stephen A. Smith then took it upon himself to basically publicly flog P. Diddy for doing that. How dare you do that? You leave the apology video up. And I'm sitting there listening to him like, bro, who sent you? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing right now? What exactly are you doing? Are you the one, like, are you litigating the case? Like, what are you doing? Did they send you out to go do some investing? Like, what are you doing? But anyway, he did that. Now, here's the fundamental difference between Stephen A. Smith's energy for P. Diddy versus his energy for JJ Redick and these allegations. Some of you may say, well, there's evidence. There are things that are being said. Has the U.S. government brought a case against P. Diddy? Has a case been filed against him? Have they brought up any has he been charged with anything? I think the answer is no. So we're all sitting here and waiting, like the rest of you watching. But that didn't stop Stephen A. Smith from taking a position on P. Diddy. It didn't stop a lot of you guys from taking a position on P. Diddy. And how you want to feel about him is fine. I disowned him after I saw that video. But we don't hear a mumbling word from nobody at the network. from JJ Redick? We don't hear a mumbling word. Nothing. Nathan. When Malika Andrews mentioned Joe Mazzulla, she's like, oh, it's important to mention that Joe Mazzulla was accused of this and this is domestic violence. It was just a settle. You can't say, well, I heard JJ Redick was accused of using racial slurs against women, using racial slurs against Asian NBA fans on multiple occasions, calling them this. Now, I thought it was just one. They're like three. There's an Asian thing that he did, blunder that he had. Then he had the one with his ex-girlfriend. That situation being accused in is an email, whatever. We don't know if that's legitimate or not. And then we had the third one from Halima. I can't remember the lady's name, Halima, who used to work at Duke University back in 2005 or something like that, where he basically called it an N-word. These are three separate occasions. And we don't hear nothing from ESPN, but they want us to take them seriously when an Ime Udoka or Joe Mazzulla has an incident. Who are we kidding here? And then you got all of these in the comment section twerking it up, hollering and screaming. Yo, I don't understand what you're doing, bro. I don't get it. What's going on? Like, why are you coming against the man? Meanwhile, when we heard the stuff about P. Diddy and somebody, y'all were the first ones jumping up and down, hollering in the street. Matter of fact, some of you guys were happy that Ime Udoka got suspended. Y'all were already coming to conclusions. Well, you know, he was a support. He took advantage of his subordinate. How the hell do we know that it was a subordinate when we didn't know the identity of the person in question? But you guys had no problem, none, assuming that he was wrong. It was already ingrained in you. Yeah, wrong. He wrong. But now, when I'm bringing up the Jay, well, how you gonna bring it up for? I mean, come on, man. You hating. So what y'all been doing? You hating on Jay. Let him live. Let him live. And then the next dumbass question y'all been at, why is this coming up all of a sudden? I mean, why is it why I didn't hear it came up all of a sudden for Ime Udoka? It came up all of a sudden for Joe Mazzulla. It came up all of a sudden for Jay. It happens to anyone attaining any leadership position anywhere. They're going to run a background check. If you don't believe me, you go try to run for governor of your state, a mayor of your city, and then find out and ask the dumbass question, oh, why is all of my past all of a sudden? Because people want to know the person that is assuming the position. Duh, welcome to the world. Welcome to Earth, where we've all been. These must be children asking these questions. I don't want to believe these are grown adult men. Like, who are we kidding? So I'm not coming off of it. I'm giving you guys exactly how I feel about it, and I think the coverage is unfair. I don't see it being balanced. I see people picking and choosing. These are my thoughts.